well over a third of Gen Z and millennials can't do Disney without getting into debt. So if you see a young person at Disney, 1 out of 3 of them is going into debt to be there. Like, just look to your left, look to your right. 1 of the 3 of you is in debt or more debt. And while most families can pay off their Disney-related debt within 6 months, nearly 60% report no regrets.
60% don't pay it off.
Nearly 60% report no regrets. And that's where we get to the Disney delusion. And this is where we get to this delusion that I want this episode to be a wake-up call. And this whole thing has been a wake-up call for me to dispel, because people are so brainwashed into Disney fandom, which we would argue is analogous to any facet of modern mainstream culture, that Disney is able to exploit them in a myriad of ways, and it will never be enough. Like, these people are going into debt to buy a freaking pretzel, and they're happy about it. They have no regrets. They're like, YOLO.
What's up, guys? We're going to get into a clip by Basecamp with Malcolm and Simone here, and they're talking about the absolute insane prices at Disney, but they're also going to talk about the insane people that comprise Disney fandom at this point. They're going to throw out some ideas on what they think Disney's incentives are in terms of making money. And then I'm going to add another layer of analysis with a fairly radical take on not just Disney's incentives, but the nature of the economic system as a whole and the tipping point that I believe we are at. Good times ahead. Let's get into the clip.
I now have a completely different view and philosophy around purchasing any non-commodified product or service.
Oh, explain.
My worldview has changed. So we're going to get into it through the lens of Disney no longer being affordable. And we really have to talk about it. So I just want to, for those who are not familiar with the Disney brand and how much it has increased in cost, Disney park entrance fees now rise about twice as fast as the cost of an average American's basket of goods and services, and faster than major competitors' ticket prices too. So it's not just like, everyone's getting out of hand when it comes to theme parks. Disney's also charging customers for a myriad of add-ons that is just completely insane. And if you want to watch, because I love videos on these, I really love Jake of Bright Sun Films. Check out his Bright Sun Travel channel too. He has one video where he just goes with his girlfriend to Disneyland for one day and sort of just gives you a really good day in the life of like how much you spend being a totally non-VIP, reasonable, budget conscious Disney attendee.
Oh my!
At one point, though, he wants to go on a new ride there, the new Tron ride. He pays just $42 for himself and his girlfriend to be able to get on the ride, because there was
already in the park.
He's already in the park, but just to get on that one ride, because otherwise they never would have gotten to go on it that day, because you have to it's a whole thing. In that one day, he dropped $886.
Oh my God.
For not doing anything particular. No, he didn't buy any snacks. He didn't do anything special. He didn't get add-ons aside from that one desperate attempt to get on a ride.
I feel like something in my brain broke when the pandemic hit, because I just was not prepared for it at all. It really pulled the rug out from under me, and I found myself in a very desperate situation virtually overnight. I remember it was Friday. I was going for a stage, so a trial shift in a bar in downtown Asheville. And as I walked down the street, and there was no one on the streets, and I got downtown and it was empty, and I knew before I walked up to the door that it was going to be locked, in that it was game on. At this point, I had just moved from Austin, and I had recently heard that South by Southwest was being canceled. And after living in Austin for 2 years, I know what a big deal that is economically, culturally, for the brand of Austin, and just for the population in general. So I knew shit was about to hit the fan. But that was the beginning of a crazy journey of riding a bus back up to Maine. So something about the pandemic kind of broke me and has forever made me paranoid about the future. And I hear $800, and all I could think is, oh man, that's like 1/7 of the way towards buying a 5,000 gallon cistern. How much non-perishable food could I buy for $800? I immediately think of all of the ways that I could spend that money that would protect me in the future, rather than giving me quick dopamine in the present. And that's not a judgment of other people for spending their money that way. It's not their fault that I was retarded and poor and found myself in a bad situation. The path of honor respects free will, so spend your money however you want. It's just that when I hear someone say that, it creates this knee-jerk, emotional, almost irrational response in me. So I'm picking up what she's throwing down when she says these numbers and just the absurdity of the cost. I mean, that's more money than a lot of people make in an entire week. What about you? When the pandemic hit, did that catch you by surprise, or did it wind up being a windfall of profits with those weekly payments? I didn't get any unemployment. I didn't get any special payments, so it is what it is. But I'm curious about your stories out there listening now. What was it like the day that you realized things were about to change in a big, big way? What were you doing, and how did you respond? Leave a comment down below.
It's insane. It's also, I should say, like, it is insane to the point where people are actively damaging themselves to participate in Disney experiences. Surveys in 2024 to 2025, so like now, show that around 24% of all US Disney park visitors have gone into debt to pay for their Disney trip, with the rate soaring to 45% among parents with children under 18, who are the least, they shouldn't be getting into debt.
Rather than like saving for college or something, not that college makes sense these days exactly, but saving to set their kids up, they're like, yeah, let's go into debt for Disney.
For Disney, and it's not a little bit. The average debt for these trips is around $2,000 per family, and most indebted guests took their Disney debt on within the past 5 years. It is. I can't believe it.
The experience is not that good. We went to Disney not that long ago compared to like when I was a kid. And I remember just being like, it doesn't have that much magic anymore.
Yeah.
Especially if you contrast it with other parks like Universal Studios.
Yeah, which are like freaking amazing. Yeah, just like
you were
park
quite
technology.
shocked by how good Universal Studios was in comparison to Disney. Disney felt like a discount attract. It really reminds me of like Costco's versus BJ's. Like everybody thinks of Costco as like the higher end brand, but if you've ever been in a Costco's and a BJ's, Costco's feels very like, I do not mean to say this in like a negative way, but growing up in Texas, you could go to various grocery stores and you could tell if the primary users of the grocery store were Latin American immigrants or they were supposed to be Texas-born individuals. And Costco feels like a store that is set up for Latin American immigrants. Typically, like it's with BJ's, like everything's like very. Actually, anyone who knows, if you're Latin American and you've gone to a Latin American grocery store, you know exactly what I'm talking about. They have a very different structure in terms of the layout and in terms of the way they display products.
Oh boy, I went to an HEB somewhere south of Katy, I think in the greater Houston area the other day, and I felt like I was in Mexico, and I don't mean that in a good way. This didn't feel like some beautiful cenote in the outskirts of Tulum. The entire population that was shopping there was Latino, but that wasn't the part that made me feel like I was in Mexico. It's just the nature of the HEB had shifted completely. All of the little kiosks inside the store, they made you feel like you were in some sort of like Mexican market and not in America. It makes me think of how when you import the third world, you don't raise them up to your standard of living. You just drop yourself down to their standard of living. It also reminds you of just driving down the road in Houston and I see these different Latinos that aren't American at all. They're just total foreigners and they're out there hawking goods on the side of the road. They're out there in the medians selling stuff. It's usually some kind of torta with one baby on her hip and another toddler following her around like a shadow, just flooding my homeland with her offspring. To be honest, I actually find it quite revolting every time I witness that. I just think, this is not America. You didn't come here and start behaving like us. You came here, and now, if anything, we are going to start behaving like you. And I suppose that's the difference between bringing in a very tiny amount of immigrants that actually augment your quality of life and bringing in a population of immigrants that are essentially invaders. In the former situation, they help raise your standard of living. In the latter situation, you just descend into the world that they came from. And if you're a Mexican who lives in America and you hear this, I guess I've got two observations to make. Number one is, why are you still a Mexican if you live in America? And number two is, if you do feel as though you are still a Mexican, even though you live in my country, you can go back to your own country and kick out all of the Americans there. And I will support you just as much as I support the Americans trying to kick your asses out of my country. It's a very simple principle. Good fences make good neighbors.
Disney is not actually unique. It is, we'll say, like a sort of hyperbolic example, but it's representative of any non-commoditized product in a market. And discourse around Disney's unaffordability yields a key insight, because non-commodity products are basically, in this modern age, endlessly exploitative. There is no way that they're going to be affordable or sustainable. In other words, you're either going to get a crappy experience like we did at Disney, or you're going to spend so much money that like you're in debt, or all your money spent on it and you're still not going to be satiated.
So
And
explain what you mean by a non-commodity experience.
so I'm referring to, and so there are sort of two broad different types of business models. There are commodities like groceries, like gasoline, where businesses are making money by being more efficient and trying to get as much market share as possible. And then there are products that are more like luxuries or discretionary purchases, where really as a business you are making money by differentiating yourself and building brand loyalty. And the
Mhm.
only way that you're really going to make money is by getting focusing it, doubling down
Yeah.
on your top. Typically there's just the Pareto principle at play. Your top 20% of customers are going to make up the majority of your earnings. And because of that principle, basically, and businesses, I think in the past, even in our childhoods, and you can see this
Mhm.
with Disney, they didn't, I guess, want to admit this. They were like, oh, we welcome all, we want to get all the customers, let's give everyone a great
Yeah.
experience. And now businesses are getting a lot more ruthless about like, no, we're going to fire these customers either by like literally excluding them or by just giving them a really shoddy experience. And we are going to completely focus in
Well, okay, so
on that
consider
20%.
Disney and why they would do this if people are confused by this. If you go to Disney, and I've been on like non-big days, you are in giant lines. Like let's say like 2-hour lines for like every ride, right? From a Disney perspective, that means you, if you're not one of the highest paying customers, are just making the highest paying customers wait longer for a ride, right?
Yeah,
Like
you're in their way. You're crowding the
if
park.
you're frugal, they don't want you there.
Yeah, if you're showing up with bottled water and with snacks packed and you're not paying for any extras, and then on the other hand, there's this family that buys the merch, goes to the premium restaurants, goes to a dessert party, gets the genie passes, stays at the most expensive branded hotel in a suite, does a 6-day package, is a Disney vacation package, timeshare member, like all these things. Like obviously they want that other family to get everything. They're going to get all the attention. But this is a general market principle now that has been widely adopted and accepted. And what this means functionally, whether you have kids or not, is that if you try to get your luxury, that is to say like your hedonic pleasure, any non-commoditized product, so like not groceries, maybe not, well, premium groceries are different, we have Erewhon and everything, but like if you're getting normal stuff, that's fine. But anything beyond that, at this point, you really shouldn't turn to products or services that you buy outside your community or household for your happiness,
Mhm.
because you cannot get it there. Again, it will either
Yeah.
cost it
Well,
will
I mean,
cost
that's what they're
everything
telling you.
or it will be
They're selling
crappy.
you the belief that you're happy. That is what Disney fundamentally sells people these days.
Yeah, but they're
Is
not you're not getting happy. You go there and you're like, "Well, great, now I'm in debt. It wasn't that good of a day. I couldn't even get into anything because the lines were too long. And I'm stressed by the money I did spend."
well, I mean,
Um
people allow themselves to be sort of brainwashed by it and into believing that they're doing something good and that they are happy because otherwise they need to deal with the cognitive dissonance of all the money that they wasted.
Yeah. I think, the other dynamic too is that this is, I think, and I'll show you in the numbers, this is a relatively new thing that is happening with discretionary goods, with non-commoditized goods. So I think a lot of us, having most of the people watching this are like older teens or adults, had some experience with more sustainably priced discretionary goods, and kind of could for a while get by with getting luxuries and being satisfied from them and getting a premium experience in a
Mhm.
slightly more affordable format. This was also cheesed by that experience of like the post.com debt, or sorry, tech boom, where like VCs were just pumping money into startups that sold luxuries, which in turn were only trying to get market share by making their products and services super underpriced. So
Mhm.
this was back when you could get like an Uber, and an Uber meant like a luxury black car, and it was actually
Yeah.
affordable, but like that was just because a venture capitalist was subsidizing it. No one could afford that. So I think a lot of us have grown up thinking that we could do this, and now they're still doing it. Like they're putting money into the machine, and nothing's coming out, and they're not realizing this. But this is your wake up call.
This is where I diverge from Malcolm and Simone in terms of our overarching perspective on what's happening with the economic system. I think that the analytical tools they are using are actually outdated. I believe that our economic system is developmental in the same regard as an ecosystem, and it begins as the version that they're describing, where genuine competition matters, supply and demand matter, and then it moves with ever increasing speed towards a model that focuses entirely on economic rent collection rather than providing genuine goods, services, and rather than being a system that's subject to the feedback loops of recursive structural patterns that we associate with the behavior of free market conditions. A central bank in particular forces constant growth onto the system, which forces all players to pursue economic rents above all else. And so the selective pressure isn't to provide effective goods and services, it's to do whatever is necessary to acquire greater and greater magnitudes of economic rent. Additionally, the corporate model of ownership creates this same selective pressure because you essentially have these shareholders who, sure, they may provide capital, but then they simply collect economic rents ad infinitum, and the cost of paying economic rents forever outweighs the benefits of a one-shot capital provision event, which seems to be the only tangible benefit provided by shareholders. That cost is ultimately structural collapse in response to the condition of forced constant growth. It is impossible for an economic system to grow forever. It is impossible for any system that lives downstream of Darwinian reality to grow forever. This would violate the second law of thermodynamics. Both the central bank system and the corporate ownership structure create these selective pressures. So they create the conditions for the collapse of the system in the first place. They introduce a hermetically sealed fate for the economic system. So I believe that we are essentially at a point of singularity, and Malcolm and Simone don't seem to be accounting for that with their analytical tools or their modeling. But we're going to get more into this a little bit later with central bank digital currencies and the concept of compliance signaling, as well as rituals of allegiance, which are going to link to the idea of social engineering within Hollywood and really hit home with Disney in particular.
So first, let's just talk about how out of control things have gotten and how quickly. And we're going to look at the price hikes.
Okay, let's look at the price hikes. Let's
They're
go.
intense. So park entrance at Disneyland, 1955. Do you want to guess what it was?
Is it cost adjusted? I'm gonna guess $50 cost adjusted.
Hell, it was $11 to $24.
$24? That's cost adjusted to modern
to 2024. Although before 1981 in Disney parks, you had to make separate purchases for rides. And then the all-inclusive ticket model began in 1981. So if we just look at then 1981, still it was $31 all-inclusive to get in the park. Then in 1990, it was $72, like around $72. In 2000, $84. In 2010, $107. In 2015, $131. In 2024, $104 to $206.
And keep in mind when you're looking at these earlier dates and you're like, but my parents could afford to go to Disney with me when I was a kid, so I want to do that for my kids.
Because they could. Because
they literally could. It was a different experience back then.
Yeah.
And frankly, I think it was a better experience, Rise Wide and Park.
I loved it. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Oh, for the same cost. I mean, I'm sure we could just go to Hershey Park or something. And
so I will point out, actually, other USA parks, when adjusted for inflation, the entrance fee increases in US-based Disney parks have significantly outpaced both the national inflation rate and the price hikes at rival parks, such as like Universal Studios and Six Flags. But all major parks have seen double-digit increases in the past decade. They are outpacing inflation. And I can send you a series of tables.
Well, I want to talk about Disney like branded goods as well.
Oh, we're going to get to that. But I also first want to point out just how out of whack things are, because this is actually it's clearly a Disney strategy. And in some other countries, I think this Pareto principle, high roller exploitation strategy hasn't necessarily rolled out, because there's this very interesting case study of Tokyo Disney, which is not owned by Disney. It's like licensed. So while in 2025, the inflation adjusted price of, well, we don't have to inflation adjust for this, of Disney in the USA, 189 around to get into like a Disney park. Tokyo Disneyland, you want to guess?
Tokyo Disneyland, I don't know what it's
$75 to get in.
Oh, really?
That was the price to get in approximately 1990. So in 1990, the inflation adjusted dollar price to get into a park was 72 in the United States. So basically, if you want the 90s park experience still, you can literally get it at Tokyo Disney. Same goes for the food. And again, because I love watching park reviews. I've seen so many influencers like literally do all the numbers, fly out to Tokyo. And they're like, literally flying to Tokyo and going to Tokyo Disney costs me less than going to Disneyland in California. Yeah, which honestly, like, I so want to do. That's why I'm like, come on, let's get some kind of pronatalist event.
So bear in mind, we're actually looking at a system that is generating more wealth than it ever has before. And that statement is true almost every single day that we move forward, at least on a long-term scale. And yet no one within the system who produces that wealth through providing goods or services can afford to obtain that wealth that they themselves produced. That's because all of the extra wealth that has been produced through technological advances and increased productivity since the very existence of the first central bank has been absorbed in the form of economic rents universally. So this moment, it was always just a matter of when, not if. And now we're there. Now we're at the point of collapse, and we are at the point of singularity. The rules that govern the behavior of the system yesterday will no longer apply tomorrow.
Though I did send you Disney food prices just so you could see, because the park meals are insane. So in 2014, I'm just going to give you some like very classic Disney food comparisons.
Okay.
But you can also look at the food menus that I sent to you just to see like what they are now.
Oh my God. Sorry. I'm looking at one of these. It is literally a frozen. Okay. Yeah. So I guess this is an older one. A frozen banana is $6.25. Oh my God. Popcorn is $13.
Yeah. I mean, in a commemorative plastic bucket, though. So, I mean, this is literally why we bought a cotton candy machine, because we cannot bear to buy candy at venues anymore.
Light lager is $10.
I mean, you need to be sloshed to deal with that kind of stress, though. So in 2014, there's this place called Santa Bread Service. Their inflation adjusted 2025 price was about $13. Now, or as of 2024, it's $22. How about corn dog nuggets? They were $6.68 in 2014. Now they're $11, almost twice as much. Dole Whip, classic Disney treat.
Yeah.
In 2014, $5.36. Now it's $6.43. A Mickey pretzel used to be in 2024 $6.15. I mean, it's still insane to pay $6.15 for a freaking soft pretzel. Now it's $8.68. 2019, an adult table dinner at Be Our Guest was $68.20. Now it is $72.
Yeah, you might want to think twice before you go to that Disney theme park and eat any of the food, or a Disney restaurant for that matter. May I introduce to you the curious and tragic case of Jeffrey Piccolo? Jeffrey filed a wrongful death suit against Disney after his wife passed away from a severe allergic reaction while eating in one of their restaurants. Disney then argued against his right to sue them at all based on the terms of service that he signed from a Disney Plus free trial. So you can eat there, but just know that they are probably legally immune from any negative health consequences that may arise from you eating their food.
So let's just get Disney Plus, but it's gone up from 2019. It was $8.67 inflation adjusted. Now it's $18.99.
What?
It's
per
crazy
month?
expensive. Yeah.
That's why we don't get Disney Plus anymore.
Yeah, dude. And just to go more into the Disney debt that people go into for Disney vacations, because this is just so sobering to me. And this is why, like, even if you're like, okay, well, this is my one thing, this is where I'm going to get all of my hedonic pleasure. No, you're only going to end up hurting yourself. 24% of Disney park attendees have taken on debt for their trip. That's up from 18% in 2022.
Wow.
So I think that really goes to show that even in just 3 years, it's become so financially unsustainable that many more people are like, well, I guess like credit card debt. 45% of parents of children under 18 have gone into debt for a Disney trip. That's up from 30% in 2022. The average Disney-related debt for parents of young children is $1,983 per trip. And debt most commonly covers concessions and transportation and accommodations. So they're going into debt to buy pretzels, to buy an overpriced pretzel, an $8 pretzel. 83% of indebted parents incurred their Disney debt within the past 5 years. Gen Z, that's like 39%, and millennials, 36%, are likeliest to take on Disney debt, while only 7% of boomers do. So basically almost like getting close to, well over a third of Gen Z and millennials can't do Disney without getting into debt. So if you see a young person at Disney, 1 out of 3 of them is going into debt to be there. Like, just look to your left, look to your right. 1 of the 3 of you is in debt or more debt. And while most families can pay off their Disney-related debt within 6 months, nearly 60% report no regrets.
60% don't pay it off.
No, sorry, no, nearly 60% report no regrets. And that's where we get to the Disney delusion. And this is where we get to this delusion that I want this episode to be a wake-up call. And this whole thing has been a wake-up call for me to dispel, because people are so brainwashed into Disney fandom, which we would argue is analogous to any facet of modern mainstream culture, that Disney is able to exploit them in a myriad of ways, and it will never be enough. Like these people are going into debt to buy a freaking pretzel and they're happy about it. They have no regrets. They're like, YOLO.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and skip to the final segment of this, and then I'll just give some closing thoughts on things.
But only if you spend insane amounts of money. And this is why this exploitative behavior is both logical and also kind of inevitable if we're talking about efficient markets. Like, I don't blame Disney for doing this. And Disney's actually really transparent about their approach. So basically, they're very open about their focus on going for fewer, wealthier guests. Disney's data shows that the top 10% of US earners now account for half of all customer spending. So parks focus on affluent demographics who can pay for new premium experiences, suites, and costly add-ons. Just 10% of US earners, half of consumer spending.
Wow.
And so this is for everyone, right? So they know this, they see this as a truism, as a market dynamic, and they're like, well, I'm going to be dumb. Like I am failing my fiduciary responsibility if I don't cater to them.
If I don't kick out the pores.
Yeah. And also,
No,
so
but I think this is really going to hurt them, and I'll explain why.
Okay.
What Disney does not understand is when Disney converts a Disney person into the Disney brand and lifestyle,
Okay.
that really has to be done before the age of, I'd say, 15.
Yeah.
Disney does not make Disney adults. Disney makes Disney children who
become
were
Disney
taken
adults
by their parents as young kids, who watched Disney movies and stuff like that as young kids. But now that they are gating a huge chunk of the population, especially the population with lots of kids,
even by making Disney Plus so expensive too.
Yes.
Like, I can think that at least there's that pipeline. Like, at least you can have like your remote propaganda pipeline.
So they're making themselves irrelevant in the long term because they're a portion of the population that has fond memories of Disney. What Disney is selling you when they sell you the Disney quote unquote magic is the magic of childhood. It is trying to bring you back to your childhood.
Yeah.
And into experiences that you thought were special during your childhood. If you don't have the Disney evoked set from childhood, they can't do that.
I don't know, because even children are pretty sensitive to the concept of luxury items. And now that Disney is a luxury item, I think that it will get into their mind share that way. But let me also just, I know, like, Disney, again, also companies are not CEOs, right? Their incentive packages are not incentivized for what happens 20 years from now. And you know this. You know it. Their incentive packages have to do with this year. So they're not going to be, I mean, that may be true. They may be fully acknowledging that, but the company is incapable, based on the way that incentive packages are set up, based on the way that shareholders behave, of making that proactive plan. And recent quarterly and annual reports show that Disney parks are earning record profits with attendance still below pre-pandemic levels. So they've never recovered past the pandemic, but they have record profits. Yes, because they're squeezing so much out of people because of their massive increases in per capita guest spending on upcharges and hotels and foods and special services. And that results means that you're just getting more from fewer. You have to do less work to take care of these people. And they're also engaging in active price optimization. There's a lot of discussion online now about dynamic pricing. Disney's doing it too. They have dynamic date-based pricing. Their high price increases for skip the line add-ons, and they have a stream of upcharges, and revenue repeatedly rises even when traffic is flat or falls. And their executives are explicitly acknowledging this strategy of maximizing revenue from each visitor.
Disney's parks are like their big cash cow.
Yeah.
When contrasted with their television brand and everything like that. Disney TV, there's been some talk recently even that they've shut down basically their animation division. So they're not doing animated television stuff anymore, or like Disney TV stuff in a classical sense anymore. And this is not great, right, for Disney going forward. It's like they have a few active shows, but I can't remember the context, but it was basically like there isn't really a future for them given the way that they've structured the team at this point. And their shows just keep bombing over and over and over again, you know, whether they're Pixar or Disney or anything like that we've seen.
Well, this is despite the fact that actually I saw some graphs. I didn't grab them for this interview, but spending on production through Disney Plus and their other like media stuff has actually gone up over time.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why we're seeing Disney Plus price hikes, I think it's actually less about extracting extra money from the customer and more about the fact that they're paying more for original new content. So I think that they are aware of the fact that good media properties are crucial if they want to maintain, you know, some kind of base and not lose the middle class, because now the middle class can't
just like they've clearly taken a quote unquote side in the culture wars. Like we talk about the rehiring of Jimmy Kimmel, right?
Yeah.
Who
Yeah.
lied on air.
There was a
apologize for lying
boycott in response to Jimmy Kimmel's firing.
Yeah, which we've pointed out in the episode. He had lower ratings than most talk shows had when they were canceled. Yeah. He himself said he expected to not have his contract renewed, and it wasn't that he attacked Trump or Charlie Kirk. He just lied about an assassination attempt and then refused to apologize, and they still take him back, which I think Disney getting involved with the culture wars was a huge unforced error on their part.
They got involved with the culture wars way before that, though. I mean, all the Star Wars stuff that happened.
Well, no, of course, but the problem is they got involved with the side that had a lot of Disney adults and very few people who have kids. And that made sense from a selling more to this luxury brand audience, but it makes the brand long-term irrelevant. I do not think that Disney is going to be a particularly relevant, like it may still own a lot of stuff, but particularly relevant from a brand perspective within our children's generation.
I do think that they should be doing a lot more to be accessible to children, because even now, actually, when we see like Disney licensed products, like we were just in BJ's the other day getting our normal groceries, our 7 gallons of milk for a couple of days, and we saw these rubber ducks, which our kids love, and I was like, oh my god, why are these so expensive? Because it was a really expensive pack, and then we realized it was crazy expensive because it was like Elsa duck, and
it looked really poor quality too.
Well, they looked really crappy, but also like, if we can't, like, our kids actually are not into any Disney properties. And it's not that we're like trying to shield them. I mean, Ghibli's way better, obviously, and other stuff, but like we can't afford it. We're not going to spend that much more for ducks that have Disney theming. So our kids don't know Disney characters. I mean, for this one period, one of our kids, Octavian, really loved watching The Little Mermaid, but he kept calling her Worm.
The worm movie. But the problem is that kids today just seem to react so much better to Hideo Kojima, or no, not Hideo Kojima. What's the one I'm thinking of?
Studio Ghibli
stuff than.
No, they always have. They always have. It's just superior. I don't know what to say. And that's again, we need to have a Japanese prenatalist like family trip or like conference, because then there's the Ghibli Park. There's so many amazing resorts for kids in Japan, and they're affordable, but they're amazing. Anyway, it drives me nuts. But okay, so while I agree with you that Disney is shooting itself in the foot, probably because the way that it works is it has this like child to adult pipeline. Most discretionary goods totally work like this and are going to continue work like this, and it is a sustainable model for them, not for us as consumers, for them. Basically, if you're not selling a commodity, it's more logical to charge more and double down on high rollers that are honestly spending themselves into holes than budget conscious spenders. And a large majority of businesses, especially very specifically, not people selling commoditized products. So like just like normal low priced milk, like Walmart, gas stations, electricity, like that's fine. They generate most of their income from a minority of clients. So if we look at like, okay, Gucci, luxury product, most of its sales come from its top 20% of customers. Luxury industry analysts frequently estimate that the top 20% of customers can account to 70 to 80% of revenues and profits on ultra high-end segments. Casinos, classic example, overwhelmingly depend on their top 20% of customers for their profits, with recent studies showing that this segment is responsible for around 90% or more of total operator revenue, especially in online casino settings. The top 20% of, let's just take something, nerdy, more homegrown, like Magic the Gathering, right?
Yeah.
They're like top 20% of Magic buyers, termed whales, are estimated to generate 70 to 80%. So this is Gucci levels of their total sales.
That is fascinating.
Supporting this, discussions among Magic analysts and financial communities indicate that brand that relies heavily on the core of highly engaged, high-spending customers who purchase large quantities of cards and premium sets and exclusive product offerings like secret layer drops. And so Magic is owned by Hasbro. They don't, exactly give very detailed reports, but they definitely provide evidence of rising average transaction values that have outsized revenue growth from basically premium sets and products that are only being bought by like this super fan. And this even applies to like literally stuff that I would guess or assume to be more commoditized, but they're still discretionary goods, like phone apps, like just freaking mobile games. Analysts have found that there's like a 25 to 65 rule in the Apple App Store, with 25% of customers responsible for 65% of spending just for apps. Which is crazy. And the key balance for these businesses is to reduce the risk of losing those, obviously when you have a more concentrated customer base of just like a few high rollers, the risk is that if you lose enough of them, alienate enough of them, you're really, really screwed. You don't have this diversified portfolio. But as long as you're like pretty careful, you're okay. And then basically this incentivizes companies to just give a crappy experience to budget customers, because if anything, they're a burden. They're crowding things up. They're wasting your time when you could be spending your time better targeting and better serving the ones who have the money and can spend the money. So if you're buying non-essentials and you're not a high roller, you're just going to get an intrinsically crummy experience.
Social credit system is basically an expansion of money or a new kind of money. When you think about traditional money, gold coins, dollars, even bitcoins, they give value only to specific parts of human reality.
Right.
Some things you do, like you work, you gain money, you want to buy airline ticket, you pay money, but other things you go visit your friends, you go visit your grandmother, even you throw trash in the street. This is no monetary value. The idea of the social credit is to monetize everything, to give value to every single thing you do in life. And this is your score. So even things that traditionally were not about money, they're about reputation or status. Suddenly you get precise points for them. And also anything you want to do, you need to use your social credit for it. So again, it has positive potential in some regards. It could create the most totalitarian, systems in history, where anything you do impacts your ability to get a job, to gain a loan, to travel. And in a way, you see this not only in China, you see it all over the world, also in the US. This because it's a function of surveillance. That traditionally, only some areas of life were monitored and surveyed. And even in dictatorships, there was privacy. If you live in the Soviet Union, so the KGB can't follow you around all the time. They just don't have enough agents.
Right. They tried, but
they try, but you have 200 million Soviet citizens. They don't have 200 million agents. Now, you can monitor everybody all the time. You don't need human agents or analysts. You have the computers, smartphones, cameras, drones, microphones everywhere, and you have the AIs analyzing all the ocean of information. So this creates the potential for total surveillance. And it can take the form of the social credit system.
Now, I know this is a radical thought, but I think that Disney doesn't actually care at all if they lose money. I think that Disney, along with almost everyone who's in the upper echelons of society and connected to information networks that are exclusive to the rest of us, I think that all of them are expecting both a population collapse as well as a money supply collapse. They know that that's coming, they know that it's inevitable, and they know what is going to replace it, which will be a social credit system, a central bank digital currency. And so the more important elements of their behavior at this point are not so much to make profits in this dying currency that they know is doomed. That's like making your bed on the Titanic before it sinks. There's no real point. Instead, they understand that in the future, the important aspects of their behavior will be compliance with those individuals who control capital flows and state enforcement. And that's going to be the central bankers that are running everything right now. It's going to be the tech oligarchs in Silicon Valley that are creating the actual tools of robotic and AI enforcement, the tools that will enforce behavior. And so the Hollywood people and the different large companies, they're signaling compliance to those entities right now. They are signaling compliance to the power players of the future and letting them know, hey, make sure that I'm on the inside. Here, I'm willing to make this show about transgender ideology, even though I know it won't sell, even though I know it's going to kill my profits. I'm going to make this movie over and over and over again because I'm loyal to you. This is my ritual of allegiance. This is my way of showing, just like a Maoist struggle session, that even though it hurts me in the moment, I'm willing to hurt myself to demonstrate my loyalty to you because I know the benefits in the future will be outsized to the cost that I'm paying right now with these sacrifices that I'm making. So I don't actually think that Disney cares at all about losing money. I don't think that Netflix cares about losing money. I think they're more interested in social engineering as a mechanism of signaling their compliance to the powers that be. This situation that Malcolm and Simone are describing, it's not directly related to the compliance signaling nor the rituals of allegiance. It's more of just a tangent to that greater principle that's underlying their behavior at a systems level. However, I do believe you can see the link between my speculations and the evidence of their behavior a lot more clearly if you look at Disney Plus and you look at the media that they're producing and how over and over again they make these loser movies, these movies that lose them money, and they just seem to be, oops, I did it again. What am I doing wrong? How can I change this? How can I turn a profit? I used to be really good at this and now all of a sudden I just can't figure it out. It's because they don't care about the money anymore. They know the money supply is going to collapse and they've got their eyes on the prize that's going to be there tomorrow. You and I are the ones with more incomplete information networks. You and I are the ones who are behind the times. These people are far more in the loop of what's happening with global systems than we are. I understand that that's a radical position, and I haven't gone into great detail to support it, but I just wanted to put it out there. I think time is going to prove me right, unfortunately, and I just wanted to kind of put my flag in the ground right now and let you know where I stand and why I think this model that Malcolm and Simone are using is actually quite outdated. If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, leave a comment below, and help this channel grow.